What up is Marcus with Dynasty Fun Dads. We have a DeAndre Swift, upside down, free jersey. All you have to do is be a subscriber for a chance to win. We're going to be doing waiver wires. This is a big week, of course, for waiver wires. There's not much in the running back category. We're going to go through a couple different quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight end situation here. Let's start with quarterbacks. Taysom Hill. He had a damaged finger with a follow-through on his helmet, but you're talking about a 100-yard rusher. If he is starting, if he is playing, he is the best waiver wire kind of pickup, just in fantasy for quarterbacks. He's kind of a cheat code when it comes to it. You're thinking 80, 90 yards rushing. I mean, that's within the category if he's rushing 15, 20 times, which that's what they do. That's their game plan with Taysom Hill. And he's got high touchdown upside as well, which limits everybody in the passing category. Kamara will be hopefully back. I mean, we haven't seen him in a couple weeks now, almost a month now. And so we'll see if he comes back, and that may change things a little bit, or it may even open up some more holes in the running game for Taysom to get some attention off of him compared to like having Mark Ingram in the backfield. So Taysom Hill would be, again, one of the top waiver wire priorities. If Tua's around, he would be another waiver wire priority. He's been hot lately. Devonte Parker now back. So you have Parker, Waddle, Gesicki, Gaskin even in the backfield. You have some good weapons around him. And so Tua's actually had a decent month here. And so he's somebody that definitely can be picked up from the waivers if you do need. But he has a bye week this next week. So scratch that. If you need him this week, then don't pick him up because you won't be able to play him. But he is somebody to at least keep an eye on for the future here. Running backs wise, man, it is slim pickings. It really is. When you're talking about the Rashad Pennies, Adrian Petersons in most leagues, Deontay Foreman actually is in one of my leagues, one of my million leagues, I feel like. So if he's around, I'd pick him up because him or Hilliard, again, they are harder starts now, but in the running back apocalypse, you're going to have to do something. And so you might see Ty Johnson out there. You're going to see Rashad Pennies, Adrian Petersons. They're all not great options at this point. And so at this point, if you're a winning team, a team that's already clinched playoffs, I'm looking at handcuffs. I'm looking at teams. I'm looking at players like Jarrett Patterson. Why Jarrett Patterson? He's Antonio Gibson's handcuff. I'm looking back at Khalil Herbert, David Montgomery's handcuff. I'm looking at any other handcuff. If Darrell Williams gets dropped, he would be an easy pickup. He's almost like a super handcuff right now because he's been getting some work right now, even with CEH playing. So these are some players that you absolutely have to pick up. Even like a Benny Snell, and you're like, why in the world that? Well, Najee Harris could, if he goes down, then you immediately have probably a top 12 running back for a week. And that's all you need in fantasy. Sometimes just that 1 week. And sometimes if you have Najee, unless he goes down and your opponent picks up Benny Snell or has Benny Snell or waiver priority of Benny Snell, you just lost a huge point swing. And that's how teams lose playoff matches. And my goal for anybody listening is to make sure that they have the best chance of winning their championship. If they can go from 20 to 25 or 20 to 30, it means eventually you're going to have more championships because you have more knowledge and more basis of what we're going to be going through some championship stuff here because a lot of teams, this is the final week of playoffs. And so right now, like I have a couple teams that are like 10-3 and it's like, okay, what do I do? I'm not just going to sit stagnant for a week, 2 weeks, because if you have a bye, I need to figure out what to do to best my team so it's ready week 16? Yeah, week 16. Week 16 used to be championship time. So week 16 and week 17, like how can I best make sure that my team is prepared and ready? You can't do everything, but you can just hope for some health in the next couple weeks as well. Wide receivers, there's a lot of different wide receivers that have ability. Jamison Crowder, now Corey Davis supposedly out for the year, and so Jamison Crowder could be an option if Zach Wilson decides to give the ball besides Elijah Moore. So that is one of the many options. Rashad Bateman could be dropped in many leagues, and so just be an eye out on that, because if Rashad Bateman's dropped, he could be somebody that, not maybe next week, but if you start getting a little bit more confidence of him, he did not do well the last couple of weeks. But again, somebody you can't just give up hope on because Lamar's had some bad weeks too. If Lamar turns it around here and passes it more, which he needs to show that he can pass the ball here. He's had these just horrible stretches where, he has these Jalen Hurts-like stretches, and it's just so frustrating. And so, a lot of times people will drop, like Rashad Bateman, all of a sudden, boom, all of a sudden they start to give more passing volume too. And I think they actually need to use Rashad Bateman. He's shown that he's capable of being a decent slot receiver or a decent even X receiver, and they just don't utilize him. They use a ton of Marquise Brown, and then Mark Andrews, about half the time he either catches an amazing catch or it's an interception. So that's the interception. That's not the interception. That's the problem. MVS has had he had 9 targets last week before the bye week. People might have forgot about him because of the bye week. We haven't even got to my number 1 wide receiver pickup, but MVS is a huge boomer bust type of player. If you're a team that is, let's just say you are an underdog, maybe you're like a 10, 15 point underdog, MVS is one of my favorite because it doesn't matter if you lose by 25 or 1, you're still going to lose. If you still lose, you lose. But MVS is that guy that can change that field. All of a sudden, 70-yard touchdown, you're like, whoa, I just got 13, 14 points from my wide receiver spot that maybe he was going to get 7. Or if it's in PPR, he could get a couple catches for 100 yards and a touchdown, and now you're looking at a 20-point receiver on a spot that maybe wasn't going to get 20 points. Or he could get 1, and then you're going to lose anyway. So it's like you need these kind of boomer bust players. The Deshaun Jackson type. They're super fun to have. They're sometimes scary to have. But it's always nice to have that weapon. Especially if Green Bay plays later. In the like if they play like a 3:00 game or a primetime game, then it's super fun because then you have the ability to be like, no, I'm gonna bench him, or no, I'm gonna start him because of based off those 12:00 games, which is so important of a strategy to be able to be fluctuate depending on how the week is going. To have some of these players that are going to give you 0-1-20, 2-4-20 versus a guy that's going to get you 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Like that's going to get you okay, but you need sometimes to catch up and get some big points here. The number 1 pickup waiver priority is KJ Osborne. He has to be. Tyler Conklin could get more work. Kirk Cousins has been a top 10 fantasy wide receiver this year. So KJ Osborne is going to be the guy. He went up all the way up to 90+% snaps without Adam Thielen there. And they're going to have at least 2 wide receivers there. And he is the number 2 now. He was the number 3, like above and beyond, easily wide receiver wise. Tyler Conklin still will be involved. Justin Jefferson will still be amazing. But he is the number 1 waiver priority. And in tight end land, Foster Moreau, he's going to be the replacement of Waller. If Waller's still out, Foster Moreau is the pickup here. I mean, it's what it was last week. It is what it is this week. He was targeted. He just seemed to not have, he almost got caught, or he almost got touched down in the end zone. Got pushed away. Another almost big play, knocked away at the last second. These are things that can happen. And if somebody drops Dawson Knox, which I think would be crazy, but just make sure that you are looking at who's being dropped. Dawson Knox didn't have a good game, but again, Buffalo was in a horrible weather. So if you see players like that being dropped, then these are times to pick them up. Even I don't think a Hunter Henry will be dropped, but again, Mac Jones only threw the ball 3 times, completed 2 of them. So again, that game was a weird game. It's not going to be always like that. And so you have to look at these players being like, oh, well, maybe it's a team gets kind of in a situation, they go, oh, Hunter Henry did nothing for me lately, or Dawson Knox hasn't done anything for me lately. Those are 2 tight ends that you almost have to immediately pick up in those situations. So always be aware of who people are dropping, especially if I know this is going to be a 30-second about defenses, and people are going to probably hate this, but if you play with defenses, which I do in some leagues, you need to see what some of these teams that have 2 defenses that might get into these roster constraints, and they might start drop a defense or 2, and start looking at your matchups for weeks 15, 16, 17, if you don't need a win this week. We will talk to you about what those defenses might look like coming up here, because I'm going to be in that exact situation, going through and trying to find what defenses are going to be super important for week 16 and week 17, because I have some defenses that don't have great matchups. Like I have Arizona, and I have the Rams, and I have 2 different defenses, or I have 1 different defense, 2 different, I have a defense in 2 different leagues. And so, being a Rams owner, I'm just frustrated with their defense. I can't remember who they play. They play the Chargers or something like that. I don't know. They play somebody good. And I remember going, okay, I need to find a different defense for week 16, week 17, because I don't feel confident. Week 16 comes along, I don't feel confident playing the Rams against a really good offense. And so those are the decisions that you have to make. And honestly, I've done this before. I've done this plenty of times before, where I have won playoff matches because I have been ahead of the game in picking up defenses, or picking up waiver priorities, or handcuffs, or rookies. Big 3: rookies, handcuffs, defenses, and so 2. It might be only 2 for you guys. for some of your leagues. It might be just handcuffs and rookies, especially in redraft stuff. And so those three things in some leagues are the biggest things I think that will separate teams from winning to not winning a playoff matchup. There's times where I have picked a defense and I know I'm like, all right, boom, Baltimore a couple of years ago, I think it was like 3-4 years ago, Baltimore. They play a horrible, horrible team on week 15, I think it was at that point. And I'm like, I need them. And then I got to week 15 and they scored like 20 points. And so that's why some people hate defenses, but it's also a really good point on trying to separate yourself from the competition. If you have a good roster and you lose on defense a bunch, that could really hurt your team and potentially make you lose. And that's why people don't like defenses. But I don't mind them at all because it's part of the game. And you know what? It's fun to have a defense go to nullify defense. We have to nuke defenses, I think, at points. Because you don't want defenses getting 20, 30, 40 points. But if defenses get 5 to 10 points or 0 to 10 points, I think that is an important thing. We do have a nuked league in one, and I do like it because really the most you can have is, I mean, if you get like 2 touchdowns and stuff, you might have like 15-ish points. But the least you can have is 0 too. So like really you're kind of nuking defenses. They're not super important, but you also don't want them to be value-based drafting of like where all of a sudden the number one defense is scoring an average of 14, 15 points, and the average defense is scoring 6. Then you have a 9-point gap, and when you have a 9-point gap, they are almost as important as, or could be even more important than like a Travis Kelce versus like a Gesicki. And then when you think about that, you go, oh crap, that could be the biggest issue of why people don't like defense, blah, 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 blah. All right? So again, this is Marcus from Nice Simple Dads. We'll see you again soon. Peace out. Take care.